The hell are you supposed to be? I'm vengeance.
What's up, AW Lights? Airward or what's up? I hope you're all good. Welcome to the latest SmackDown with your host, AWO. Please, I'm here to talk about wrestling. Well, Hulk Hogan. Okay? Here to talk about Hulk Hogan. As you know, this guy transcends more than just wrestling. But yesterday, Hulk Hogan, the man Terry Borella, well, I can't pronounce his name right. I'm sorry. The man passed away. Okay? The man passed away. And it caught people off guard. There was speculation that he was sick. Okay? He was sick. Okay? We didn't know how serious it was. So it was dead. It was very serious, obviously. I mean, he's dead. Okay? Okay? Now, I gotta talk. So, yes, this is a controversial figure. Hulk Hogan, the man, is a very controversial figure, right? Obviously, he's a very controversial figure. His post-wrestling days. But on this stream, we're going to talk about basically his career in wrestling, in WWE, WCW, and all of that. And I'm not going to mention his lies he told. I mean, yeah, there's a bunch of lies he said are obviously debunkable. Okay? It's crazy. Oh, yeah, that's last time. And they were thinking of getting him back, and he decided not to. Well, I'm not going to, right? We try to go about an hour, to the best of my knowledge, from his career. Okay? And, okay? I'm going to Yeah, I remember his family. Yeah. But let's talk about his career. So this man, so he was trained in the 70s. Okay, 70s, right? He was known as Terry Boulder in the times of Mortal Hulk Hogan. He was before getting to WWE or WWF. There was before being short of WWF. He was in Memphis Wrestling, the Jerry King Lawler's promotion. He was managed by Freddie Blassie, and he wrestled Andre. I mean, look, he wrestled Andre in WWE, but he wrestled Andre as the Immortal Hulk Hogan, as a heel, and all of that, right? He was managed by Classy Freddie Blassie, okay? And he used to wear white trunks, and he was known as Immortal Hulk Hogan because he looks like a beast, but he did wrestle Andre very early on, okay? And then he went to WWF, or he was WWF at the time, but he wasn't Hulk Hogan as we know it, okay? Vince McMahon Sr. Okay? Vince McMahon Sr. was alive, so he was in charge of WWF at the time, not WWE, WWF at the time, right? And he fired Hogan. He fired Hulk Hogan because Hulk Hogan took it on himself to start as Thunderlips in Rocky 3. Yeah, Rocky 3, the Mr. T movie. Yeah, I mean, he was. And you should just check out New Japan matches. Let you know, the thing, if you want to see a good his New Japan match with Inoki, I think it's Inoki. It's actually pretty good. He's actually more skilled in the ring than you people give him credit for. He's actually more skilled in the ring. Check out his match with Inoki. It's on YouTube. He's actually in his New Japan matches, Japan matches. He actually is very talented. Shows a lot more of his ability. But so he was fired from WWF by Vince McMahon Sr. because he decided to take the role as Thunderlips in Rocky 3 with Mr. T, and that's how he met Mr. T and the whole WrestleMania inaugural WrestleMania thing set up. We'll get to that obviously. So obviously, right? So he was Thunderlips, and if Stallone was recently on TMZ, and maybe as yesterday, talking about Hogan. Because they have a friendship. Hogan and Sylvester Stallone. So he was Thunderlips, right? In his role was a wrestler. He played a wrestler in Rocky 3. It was wrestler versus boxer for charity, right? Right. So after he was done with Rocky 3, he wanted to get back to the wrestling, right? Unfortunately, WWF wasn't taking him back. Vince McMahon Sr. was still around then. I think Vince McMahon Sr. obviously passed away, but when Rocky 3 came out, was he still alive, Vince McMahon Sr.? I'm not sure. Let me see when Vince McMahon Sr. passed away. And when Vince Jr. took over. Okay. He died in 1984, so that's okay. So he wanted to come back to wrestling, right? So WWE wasn't hiring at the time, or WWF wasn't hiring at the time. So he went to AWA, American Wrestling Association, the Greg Gagne and his father's promotion. What's Greg Gagne's father's name? The Minnesota promotion. The Minnesota promotion that produced a lot of star talent that went on to WWE, WCW. I mean, guys like Kurt Hennig, Scott Hall, the Rockers were there. They had lots of talent. All right, lots of talent in AWA. So he went to AWA, the American Wrestling Association. Vern Gagne is the father of Greg Gagne, running at the promotion. And Nick Baldwinkel was like the Ric Flair of AWA. Okay. So, and this is where Hogan kind of made his name. Hulkamania. He didn't make a name in WWF at the time. He made a name in AWA. His match with Nick Baldwinkel, he was so damn popular, so over in AWA. See his matches with Nick Baldwinkel for the title. Just the reaction he gets from the crowd. It's crazy. It was crazy insane. And Vince McMahon Sr. passed away. So obviously McMahon Jr., saw this phenomenon growing in AWA, Hogan, and he said, you know what? I can make money with this guy. We'll get on a bigger scale, a bigger promotion with more money. We're going to go more global. We're going to not just more global, but we're going to be more seen with TV and things like that, right? More people around the world, one USA can see WWE. And you know what? This guy, Hogan is going to be the face of that, right? This guy, Hogan, is going to be the face of that. So, Mr. McMahon Jr. made sure to get Hulk Hogan into WWF because, like I said, bigger arenas, right? Bigger arenas, more viewing, more viewership, right? More people will see. TV, better TV, right? Better TV. Okay? Better fucking TV, obviously. And so Once Iron Sheik, right? So Bob Backlund did not want to lose the title to Hogan, okay, or whatever, or something like that. I mean, because they're not going to have a face lose to another face. So they decided to take the title off Bob Backlund by Iron Sheik beating Hogan in 1984, right? Not beating Hogan, beating Bob Backlund. And Iron Sheik was just a transitional champion just to get the title onto Hogan. And so Hogan versus Iron Sheik, Hulk Hogan versus Iron Sheik at not WrestleMania, just an event in Madison Square Garden in New York. And that's where Hogan defeated the Iron Sheik to become champion. And that's when Hulkamania fully took off. That moment, he defeated Iron Sheik at Madison Square Garden to become champion. For 4 years, I believe he was champion. 3 or 4 years, he never lost the title. And he didn't give a shit. He wouldn't be shit without Super Billy Graham. That's true. He kind of stole some of his character from Billy Graham. But like all wrestlers steal stuff. I mean, Ric Flair stole from Buddy Rogers, Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, Nature Boy Ric Flair. So Hogan and Madison Square Garden took the title from Iron Sheik. Now, the number one villain, he needed an adversary going forward, and that adversary turned out to be Roddy Piper. Right? He needed an adversary. Okay? Okay? And so, what was going on WrestleMania? So WWE for the first time a wrestling company, because wrestling was so territorial, but Vince McMahon did not want to be territorial. Vince McMahon wanted to make wrestling mainstream. Okay, he wanted to be mainstream. He wanted to see everybody to see it. It doesn't matter where, right? The U.S. is very territorial, right? You have Texas has their own wrestling companies like WCCW, Von Erichs, and Freebirds, who are famously for that. Florida has their own AWA. North Carolina, right? Wrestling was very territorial. Vince McMahon is like, no, we're not going to be territorial. We're going to take over. We're going to make wrestling worldwide. We're going to make it mainstream, right? We're going to make it big, right? This is going to... And, Vince McMahon started to buy out some territories and started to poach from territories, too, right? Poach wrestlers from territories. Especially the American and Canadian territories. Mostly from American and Canadian territories, because it's harder to get from the other countries. He has got from some other countries over the seas. He has managed to get some talent, but not as much as from Canada and US, because it's easier. It's easier. But so WrestleMania, he won this one big event, because WCW or NWA, WCW at the time had their big event, Starrcade. Starrcade actually, Starrcade is always perceived as WCW's WrestleMania, right? Right? But WCW NWA wasn't. I mean, it might have been. It's prestige. Let's just say it was a prestige territory. One of the most prestige territory. It might have been. Yeah, exactly, Brad. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, a second, Brad. Exactly. That's right. But so like NWA, WCW was always second, but it was like a distant second to WWE or WWF at the time. And later on we'll get to where they were not distant second anymore. They were not second anymore, where they became first. That's later on. But they're always, because they had like Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, the Four Horsemen, Magnum TA. I mean, before his unfortunate accident, the NWA was arguably the second behind WWE, but it wasn't even close to WWE. Okay, it was still perceived as territorial. WWE, no. Once Madison Square Garden, once they did WrestleMania Madison Square Garden, the first one, WWE was not territorial anymore in the upper New York, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, north part of Canada anymore. Okay. in that feud with Roddy Piper, they had Mr. T involved, right? Mr. T, Paul Orndorff, Bob Orton, and also they had Cyndi Lauper got involved, right? Cyndi Lauper got involved. They had all these celebrities for WrestleMania. Cyndi Lauper, Muhammad Ali, I believe, was the first WrestleMania, right? All these celebrities involved. You very rarely see that in wrestling. I mean, there has been in the smaller territories. Like the most famous one I can think of is Andy Kaufman. Like Andy Kaufman was in part of Memphis wrestling. He did a story with Jerry King Lawler, Memphis wrestling. You should check that out. It's a great storyline, and I love how real they made it. Like the David Letterman show. The David Letterman show, that skit where he slapped Andy Kaufman on David Letterman's show, that was planned. That you all know, that was all planned. That was all planned. But WWF took the celebrity involvement to a new level, and they embraced the '80s rock era of music too. Okay. Okay. Right. And so that WrestleMania match is incredible. You go watch it. Watch it. I mean, look. It's not it's not a 5-star match now. I mean, the wrestling quality compared from now to then is night and day, but it's just the story and the atmosphere, the everything going in. Okay. Okay. And then we start. Hogan was on top. He was popular. He got movie roles, right? Not a very good actor, but No Holds Barred, Suburban Commando. He got movie roles, right? So so on past couple WrestleManias later. I mean, obviously the 1986 WrestleMania was in 3 different locations. He wrestled King Kong Bundy in a cage match. Had a nice little feud with Paul Orndorff. All right. And then obviously one of the biggest storylines of wrestling was Andre the Giant Hogan, set up for WrestleMania 3 in Detroit. In Detroit. Okay. So it's one of the big stories. Big stories. And what was great about the story was Andre the Giant was always a baby face, always a baby face, always a baby face. No matter where he goes, he was always a baby face. Yeah, yeah. Is that what he says? Is that what he says? Because that's not what Mark Calloway says. Okay, Mark Calloway says it's not true at all. Um, because I think he was in the company. I think Undertaker was in the company when Suburban Commando was happening. Don't know. All right. So yeah. So Andre the Giant was always a babyface wherever he goes, no matter what, basically. So this time with the story of Hogan, and Hogan and Andre were always like friends, always friends in the ring and out of the ring. They're like good. They're always buddies and friends, right? It's very hard to be Andre the Giant's friends, and Hogan was one of them. But storyline purposes, Bobby the Brain Heenan, who's if you think about Bobby the Brain Heenan, top right. You think of all the great adversaries that Hogan has as rivals: Piper, Savage at times, Sting, Orndorff, Warrior, maybe. Like all these adversaries he had. Bobby Brain Heenan is his top adversary, okay? Because Bobby Brain Heenan made it his mission to destroy Hulkamania, ruin Hulkamania, everything. Bobby Brain Heenan was his greatest adversary. All right, and he was not a wrestler. I mean, he did wrestle, but when Hogan was around, he was a manager. That's his greatest adversary. I remember that, Red. I don't think that was okay. Oh, okay. And so Bobby Brain got into Andre the Giant's head about the title, because Andre the Giant, as much as a wanderer he was, as much as an anomaly he was in the wrestling world, as much as an attraction he was in the wrestling world, he never was a world heavyweight champion anywhere. And Heenan got in his head that to become champion and turn heel and turn Hogan. And that infamous famous skit where Andre it wasn't his shirt, right? He ripped something of Hogan's. What was it? What was it? It wasn't his shirt, right? And now the look on Hogan's face, like it was so heartbroken, so heartbroken and distraught, man. Like you remember that. And then they had the WrestleMania 3 match, Hogan versus Andre. Look, it wasn't really a good match. The point of the match, it wasn't really good. The point of the match is just Hogan versus Andre, two big behemoths. I mean, Andre's a behemoth. Hogan's a behemoth too. But according to Hogan, Andre weighed 700 pounds at the time. And the body slam, yeah, and everybody, in that moment, the body slam. Where were you when he body slammed Andre? Here's a news flash. Let you know, Hogan has body slammed Andre before. That's not the first time he got body slammed by Andre. Maybe on a grander scale, in a bigger arena, and shown on TV or pay-per-view at the time. Yeah, but Hogan body slammed Andre before. Okay. Let you all know. It's not the first time. It's not the first time. It's just, WWE, wrestling like to do that. WWE likes to make you forget sometimes. All right? Okay? And then the Mega Powers story happened. The Mega Powers, right? Savage is over too. Savage is getting over as a babyface, right? Okay. Macho Man Randy Savage. So obviously, if you don't know, Hogan got screwed out of the title after 4 years. By Ted DiBiase teaming up with Bobby Heenan and Andre. Andre won the title from Hogan, but he sold it to Ted DiBiase instead, right? And then in WrestleMania, Hogan got screwed out of the tournament, and Macho Man was in the main event against Ted DiBiase for the title, right? For the vacant title because it was vacant because it can't be bought, whatever. And Hogan came up to help out with all the shenanigans, and while the ref was distracted, kind of hit DiBiase with a chair, I believe, and Macho Man finished off DiBiase, and Macho Man became champion, right? Champion. And then the Mega Powers, Macho Man and Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan became the Mega Powers, and a supple tag team lasted about a year until it exploded over their manager, Miss Elizabeth, who in real life at the time was Macho Man's real life wife. But in storyline purposes, Macho Man started to get paranoid that Hogan was trying to steal her from him, right? The storyline. And in real life too. But they always had a strained relationship, Hogan and Savage. Okay. And then that famous, what's the Survivor Series? Is when Macho Man turned on Hogan. And then Hogan, Macho Man had a match at WrestleMania. He beat Savage and became champion again. And then the storyline with Ultimate Warrior came around at Skydome, Toronto, right? And Ultimate Warrior was growing. His popularity was rising to a point where it's matching the popularity of Hulkamania, right? Right? Two massive movements. Phenomenons. I'll say phenomenons, okay? I want to say movements. We're colliding at WrestleMania 6. I know, Red. I know, Red. I know. Okay. So WrestleMania 6, all accumulated two phenomenons, right? Who's the fans going to cheer for? So Ultimate Warrior was also Intercontinental Champion at the time. So whoever wins becomes double champ. Well, Hogan didn't win. Ultimate Warrior became champ. And it was supposed to be passing the new guard to Ultimate Warrior as the face of WWE. That didn't work because Ultimate Warrior, the guy Jimmy Hellwig, was a menace backstage. And then, so later on, they had Ultimate Warrior lose the title to Sergeant Slaughter at Royal Rumble with the help of Macho Man. Macho Man cost Ultimate Warrior the title. And then that's when the story where Sergeant Slaughter became a Benedict Arnold, right? Because Sergeant Slaughter's gimmick is an American, right? He's a part of he's pro-American in the military, right? That's his gimmick. So he became a turncoat, a Benedict Arnold for that storyline, an Iraqi sympathizer, because at the time that's when the Iraq War was going on, right? So he decided to turn heel and became an Iraqi sympathizer. Okay, right? A turncoat Benedict Arnold, you could basically say, right? And Hogan defeated Sergeant Slaughter at WrestleMania. Was it 7? Yeah, it was 7. Was it 7 or 8? No, 92 was 8, so it was 7. 92 is the one with Sid Vicious, right? Is that the one with Sid Justice? Hogan said, it doesn't work for me, brother. We have to be sticking with a fast count. Yeah, we're going to get to that. We're going to definitely get to that. Okay? And so, Hogan became champion. Again, being Sergeant Slaughter. Who did he lose it to? Who did he lose it to after Slaughter? Ric Flair came in. And Ric Flair annoyed himself as the real world champion. But when Ric Flair came in, I don't think Hogan was champion anymore. Who did he lose it to? After Slaughter. I don't remember. Who did he lose it to? And in 92, the WrestleMania 92, WrestleMania 8, I believe, that's the infamous Sid Justice Hogan story with the botch won in by Papa Shango, and Ultimate Warrior comes back. From confirmation, the main event was the title, right? The confirmation that was not supposed to be the main event of WrestleMania 8. It was supposed to be Hogan and Flair in the main event, Hulk Hogan and Flair. But according to people that know back then, there was like nothing was working. I don't know, right? It wasn't working, so they decided to go Flair and Savage. I think Flair and Savage was for the title. I think Hogan and Sid Vicious was not a championship match. Or Psycho Sid or Sid Justice at the time. And it was a botch. Yeah, it was a botch finish. Papa Shango ran in too late. Ultimate Warrior it was not good. Unfortunately, the WrestleMania the year after was worse. Was worse. Okay. And this is a time where Hogan was a little bit part-time in WWE because he was doing films, TV, right? So we get to WrestleMania 3 season. Not WrestleMania 3, WrestleMania 9 season. This is when Raw begins, right? WWE Raw, flagship weekly show on USA Network every Monday night. Raw starts in January 93, right? Ric Flair wasn't champion anymore. Bret Hart was champion at the beginning of Raw, right? Bret Hart was the champion. So Yokozuna wins the Rumble, and the Rumble winner gets a title match at WrestleMania. But first, Hogan is teaming up with Bruiser Barber Beefcake, his friend. Bruiser Barber Beefcake in real life went through a life-changing accident that could have been. He could have died, but what he went through with this accident, man, I wouldn't wish it upon anybody. And he teamed up with Bruiser Barber Beefcake to take on Money Inc. That's Teddy DiBiase and IRS at WrestleMania. For the tag team title, did not win the tag team titles, right? Did not win the tag team titles. And then this is where people got angry, pissed off. People said this is where Hogan, not a few instances, this is one of his instances where he uses his power. Yeah, I remember that, Red. I remember that, the George Foreman thing. Yeah, I remember that. But this is a WrestleMania 9 main event where he uses his immense power he has, influence, right? All right. and Bret Hart loses the title to Yokozuna in one of the worst main events of WrestleMania. I mean, that might have been Bret Hart's worst match. And Bret Hart had better matches with Yokozuna later on. The year after, he had a good match with Yokozuna, I would say. But yeah, so he loses to Yokozuna, right, Bret Hart. And then Hogan comes down to the ring. Bret Hart tells Hogan, go get him, go get Yokozuna. And Hogan beats Yokozuna at the title at WrestleMania. And everybody knew he was on his way out from WWE. Everybody knew he was on his way out. So they had him for a few more months. And he loses the title back to Yokozuna, a king in the ring. King in the ring. Now, the plan was apparently Bret Hart and Hogan for SummerSlam that year. That fell apart. Bret Hart to this day is convinced that Hogan ducked Bret Hart in WWE. Like, chickened out. And now in WCW, Bret Hart and Hogan, I think, have wrestled together and maybe against each other. But I don't think in WCW they've ever had a single match. I know there have been multiple matches, tag team matches or stuff like that, but I don't think they ever had a singles match with each other in WCW. And certainly not WWE. So yeah, like to this day, and then obviously SummerSlam in '93, Hogan was not WWE more. He went, he was doing Thunder in Paradise, that TV show. He was going to do that to be a star of that show, right? Right. And so, and Ric Flair heads back to. Ric Flair's back in WCW, and Hogan has no more contract with WWF at the time, right? So he's a free agent, and he was convinced he was done wrestling. He said, "Yeah, I'm doing wrestling. I'm gonna stick to acting, right?" But Ric Flair was told by people that know Hogan that Hogan's itching to come back to wrestling. So Ric Flair told Bischoff, right, in '94, told Eric Bischoff, WCW. This is when Eric Bischoff became the executive producer, the president, and he wanted to change WCW's image. He did not want WCW to stick to that old Southern style, old Southern viewing of kind of not the old Southern kind of wrestling perception. Perception is the word. Perception. He wanted to make it more mainstream. He wanted WCW to be more like WWE in terms of not just people in the South, but people in the North and worldwide gets to see it. And Ted Turner always wanted to go against Vince McMahon. Ted Turner and Vince McMahon don't like each other. Never liked each other. And Ted Turner always wants to destroy Vince McMahon. And so when Eric Bischoff convinced him that, in order to compete with Vince McMahon, we're gonna have to change our image. We can't be perceived as a southern style of wrestling. It can't be perceived as just for southern. We have to change our image to perception. Perception rise, right? Perception is key here. So that's convinced. So one of the big first moves, he went for past WWE guys, but he didn't get the biggest WWE guys, right? So Ric Flair, told Bischoff that, Hogan's a free agent, right? And is itching to come back. So Bischoff was like, "Can you arrange a meeting with Hogan?" Oh yeah, that's true, Red. Yeah, right. So Ric Flair managed to have Hogan and Bischoff arrange a meeting at the MGM where Thunder Paradise is happening, right? And they got a deal done, right? Hogan contracted to WCW, and they had a whole freaking parade. If you see those images, they had a whole freaking parade when Hogan signed. After Hogan signed with WCW, they had a whole parade celebrating his signing. Man, I wish like a star free agent in any sport would get a parade. I mean, like if I'm like Aaron Judge and I'm a free agent again and I sign with like San Francisco Giants, I hope in San Francisco they give him a fucking parade. Or if I'm like Kevin Durant and sign to Seattle, they give him a parade to Seattle. Okay. And then he signed to WCW. And the first thing they do, Bash the Beach. I think it's Bash the Beach. Hogan versus Flair. They did something WWE was pulled away from. And My Anaheim Angels. Yeah, right. Okay, right. And so Bash at the Beach, Hogan's first match was a title match against Ric Flair. Beats Ric Flair for the title. I think Shaq was there because Shaq was, was a Magic at the time, and it was in Orlando, right? Bash at the Beach was in Orlando or Florida, well, Orlando, I guess. And Shaq was there celebrating. I think Shaq was, or it might have been Charles Barkley. One of them was there. I think it might have been Shaq. Young Shaquille freaking Neal. Okay. 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 Then they had a match at and that rematch at Halloween Havoc, where he defeated Ric Flair in steel cage. This is all the shenanigans got involved with. Bruiser Barber Beefcake came back, but he couldn't use that name. This fucking renegade guy they tried to like emulate Ultimate Warrior. That didn't work. Then 95 came along. 95 came along, right? And he had some great matches with Vader. But the thing about 95 was Bischoff, right? Like I said, Ted Turner wanted to compete with WWE. What WWE had that WCW didn't have was a weekly Monday night show, right? So Bischoff told Ted, "Well, Ted, give me a Monday night show from this time to this time." And Ted's like, "Eric, you got it. WCW Nitro 8, okay? WCW Nitro every Monday night. We're gonna compete with Raw, okay?" And the difference between Raw and Nitro is live, where Raw is taped. Okay, so okay, and yeah, that's controversy. And Bischoff's Nitro lasted less than Dynamite. That's correct. It did. Okay. Okay. So Nitro launch, and this is when one of the worst stories happened with Hogan in his career. Dungeon of Doom. Dungeon of Doom. If you remember the Dungeon, the Dungeon of Doom. That's the Legion of Doom. The Dungeon of Doom with all those supernatural characters, right? You had like, Kevin Sullivan was Kevin Sullivan was there. Then you had like the Yeti. And then you had like Shark, Ming, the Zodiac. But one of the most successful things that came to the Legion do was the Big Show Giant, right? Who had a solid career. The Legion dude did not hurt the Giant at all. Glacier. Okay, go. Bring my Glacier. Okay. So he lost it. He was a champion. He lost the title. No, he did not lose the title. The Giant. I don't know. So he wrestled the Giant. He wasn't champion anymore. He wasn't champion for a while in 95, 96. Flair and Savage were back and forth with the title belt. And then 96 came, middle of 96 is when everything changed for Hogan. Now, let me set up the story. In 96, the fans started to get tired of Hogan's shtick. His character, basically. They started to get bored of it, right? And from spring 96, he was not on WWE TV anymore, okay? WCW TV anymore. But in May of 96, everything changed for the wrestling landscape. For WCW, for WCW's fate. Everything changed WCW's fate that day. Their future at the end of May was taking a whole new direction, right? And that's when Scott Hall, formerly Razor Ramon, crashed Nitro, right? Razor Ramon, Scott Hall, crashed Nitro. Next week, Kevin Nash, formerly Diesel from WWF, crashed Nitro. And they were perceived as outsiders invading WCW. They were perceived as, the story was, they're perceived as not really part of WCW, like making people think they're part of WWE, right? Invading WCW at the time, WWF at the time. invading WCW at the time, but they weren't because contracting is illegal, obviously. But that was the idea, right? Right. And so Bash at the Beach '96 came, and they were struggling for a third guy. They were struggling. They were struggling to find a third guy, right? Right. The idea was for Sting, right? Remember Sting to turn on WCW, and Sting was the ultimate WCW guy. He's like AJ Styles at TNA, right? Sting is the franchise of WCW, right? That was supposed to be the plan. Hogan got wind of this idea of the NWO coming in, this big story coming in. These two guys. Hogan's like, it should be me, brother. It should be me, brother. Let me do it. He at first he was not doubting the idea of turning heel. He didn't think like it's good for him, good for his image, good for his overall perception among just past wrestling, right? But he just, you know what? It was a good idea to rejuvenate his career, to turn him heel. And that's when the famous Bash at the Beach happened. He came down as the third guy, turned his back at WCW, leg drop Macho Man, and killed it with that infamous promo at the end of Bash at the Beach. You know, he told the fans to stick it. And the whole NWO thing began. And he had some great matches, great stories. Obviously, Sting, a year-long feud with Sting, basically. Yeah, Starrcade was, unfortunately for a great feud, the conclusion to that feud was lackluster and really put a damper in that feud. It was a bad match at Starrcade. I mean, Hogan won to retain the title. There was a fast count. There were screw-ups in that match. There were a lot of botches in that match. Hogan won to retain. It would have been a bad idea if Hogan did retain. Overall, it was just a bad conclusion to a great story with Sting and Hogan. Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Okay? Great story there. And the NWO, it transcended and made wrestling so damn popular in the late 90s. Like, it really rejuvenated wrestling because wrestling was popular in the 80s, early 90s, but it got stale in the mid-90s because WWF was, let's be honest, WWF in the mid-90s was down in the gutter, man. It was terrible wrestling, terrible gimmicks, terrible characters, right? You see the characters in mid-90s in WWF, they had guys who was a plumber, garbage truck man, a hockey goon. The list could go on and on how many terrible gimmicks WWF had in the mid-90s. And then when the whole thing changed the NWO, WWE started to take things seriously, right? They changed their cartoonist kitty style wrestling, and they made it the Attitude Era was born with Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, DX, Corporation, right? Like to counter WWE, to counter WCW's rise of the NWO and the popular WCW, because WCW is hot. Then Hollywood Hogan said that he approached from better Kenny Omega about forming and leading the NWO in Japan, but he got kicked out, and that's how they came up with the Bullet Club. That'd be hilariously funny though. Okay, and then man, he put the title on Goldberg. Saw how big Goldberg was in reaction in Georgia on Nitro. Like Hogan losing the title on regular cable network TV. Like really, Hogan was a smart businessman there a little bit, obviously. Okay, and you know, NWO later on started to get stale, right? The thing is, there's a bunch of guys in the 40-year-olds and the 50-year-olds kind of trying to look cool, you know. And then he was back. He went back to the red and yellow, and in the summer of '99. And then WCW got shit again story wise. You have the Millionaires Club versus the New Blood. He had a feud with Kidman. I don't know why. A feud with Kidman. And then Bash at the Beach incident where he was told he was going to lose to Jeff Jarrett, and he didn't want to lose to Jeff Jarrett. He, he lost it, and he pinned Jeff Jarrett, and he walked down. The whole Bash of the Beach is for Vince Russo. And then half of the company was all NWO by the end of it. Yeah, almost everybody was in NWO and in WCW. If you remember, like, Hogan in Bash at the Beach. Yeah. I mean, look, it's really, really dumb to see Hogan lose to Jeff Jarrett. Like, Jeff Jarrett, like, Jeff Jarrett to me was never a main eventer. But I think there's people that loved him. A lot of people loved him in WCW. Like, in WWE, he would never been a main eventer. He was always been like a mid-carder guy. Never a main eventer. But yeah, and the whole thing with Vince Russo, there was lawsuits involved. And then, WCW obviously was bought by Vince McMahon and WWF. And the whole invasion angle happened. None of the top stars from WWE were there because they're being paid hefty salaries left on their contract. And they let them expire, right? They let the top talent expire. The only top talent that kind of joined WWF in the invasion era was DDP and Booker T, but Goldberg, Sting, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. Well, technically Hogan. I don't know if Hogan had a contract with WWF then, but those guys, Scott Steiner, Ric Flair, they didn't bring him on the invasion angle. Ric Flair came after the invasion angle, and then Vince McMahon decided to bring in the NWO in 2022, and right away, I was excited, and I was young, right? I was young. I was only a teenager then when they bought in the NWO. But listen, this is Kenny Omega, brother. You need to bring this guy. I discovered named Kevin Owens in NWO. I mean, Bullet Club, brother. He likes chopping meat and grinding the old school way, brother. So yeah, looking back, I knew bringing the NWO was not a good idea because bringing Hogan in, like, Hogan is not going to be booed when he comes back to WWE. He was going to be cheered, and that was quite obvious at WrestleMania 18 where he was supposed to come in as a bad guy, as the heel, but come on, Toronto loved Hogan, and he was clearly the face, and the whole match was the face. The Rock was the heel. They did a fucking basically a turn in that match, even though Rock stayed face afterwards. But just the mindset, the mindset of Vince McMahon, like, he should have known that Hogan is not going to be booed in Toronto. And the smart thing is, Hogan played that up and realized that with the crowd. He knew, Rock knew. They didn't try to pretend, like, ignore it and just continue with the story was going in. They knew, you know what? Whatever the story plans are after this match, we're going to have to change it, man, because things are going to change in this match that are going to change the future plans of Hogan and Rock. Because right, like, the Hogan team became a babyface afterwards, right? Was Hogan supposed to turn babyface or not after WrestleMania? I guess as they figured out, they knew like a couple days in or the night of WrestleMania 18, like, yeah, we're gonna have to turn babyface. Scratch all the plans we have for Hogan after WrestleMania. He's gonna turn babyface. He knew what we were doing. We're like we should know what we're doing here. And Hogan and Rock definitely knew. They definitely knew. Okay. And then Hogan sporadically showed up at WWE. He came as Captain America. He wrestled, I don't know. He also wrestled Orton. He wrestled Shawn Michaels, and when Shawn Michaels oversold every single move he did. Remember, he oversold every single move because originally they were supposed to do a 3-match, right? A 3-match card, right? Not a 3-match card, but 3 matches, right? Where Hogan would get the first win, Michaels gets the second win, and Hogan gets the final win. But Hogan was against that. He wanted all 3 wins. Kind of like, he basically wanted to bury Shawn Michaels. And Shawn Michaels was like, nope. And so the SummerSlam match, the only one match they had, Shawn Michaels basically oversold everything Hogan gave him. All right. Also, he went to TNA. You know, he tried to run TNA with Bischoff. Oh man, that was a mess. That was a mess. I'll talk about TNA days. I don't know. I mean, he brought a lot of his friends and the Nasty Boys. He brought in Scott Hall and X Pac. It was crazy as TNA days. It was people didn't like it. TNA was good pre Hogan, and then it wasn't good Hogan era. It wasn't good after the Hogan era either. It's good now. And then we got a source of trouble. Hogan got a source of trouble. The Gawker thing, right? The sex tape apparently with Gawker, and that's going to miss a lawsuit. I don't know what's going to go on with the lawsuit anymore. I don't know what's going on. Hulk Hogan threw himself a parade when he signed with TNA. Right? All right. So yeah, the Gawker thing because of a sex tape. Now, to let you know, there's a movie being based on that. Based on that, with Ben Affleck being Hulk Hogan. So, yeah, there's barely a movie on that. And then 2015, WWE basically blacklisted them from WWE because leaked tapes of him being racist came out. So they kind of like they basically blacklisted them, right? They didn't show them on anything promoting anything, right? Up anything. They didn't show. Basically, they blacklisted him anything, right? They took him out of the Hall of Fame. They took him legitimately out of the Hall of Fame. And Chris Evans will be the Hulk Hogan when he says the N word in the movie. So they took him out of the Hall of Fame for those racist comments to come out. Okay, right? So that leaked taped. They took him out of the Hall of Fame. They blacklisted him basically. They didn't have him on any appearances for a while. Anything like that. They took him out of like any promotional material or anything that has to do with Hulk Hogan in WWE. And the thing is, there's people in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, racist comments is terrible. Don't get me wrong, it's terrible. But there's people in the Hall of Fame that, I mean, said worse or did worse. It's a selective outrage here. Because Ultimate Warrior says some pretty deranged stuff. Homophobic things like that. Ultimate Warrior's in the Hall of Fame. I don't know if he's ever apologized. Okay. Jimmy Snuka is in the Hall of Fame. He's basically a murderer. Okay. He's in the Hall of Fame. Okay. I'm just saying there's a selective outrage here with Hogan and others in the Hall of Fame. And here's the thing, guys. To me, a Hall of Fame in sports is a freaking museum. All this is a museum. It's a museum. To me, it's a museum. And museums always have the worst people because they're exhibits. Okay? Like museums are not meant to just to have good history in it. It's supposed to provide good and bad history. What happens in history? The good and the bad. To me, that's the Hall of Fame in anything. In fact, WWE doesn't even have a physical Hall of Fame. But yeah, there's people in the WWE Hall of Fame who have done, man. I'm wondering what's the outrage of Ty Cobb, man. Ty Cobb is in the Baseball Hall of Fame. He's racist. They didn't take him out. Like, I'm just the fucking museum. Okay. And obviously later on, he's tried to apologize in an old way, but some of the wrestlers didn't buy it, specifically the African American wrestlers. They didn't buy it as an apology at all. It's just more Hogan doubled down, like not doubling down, but like, yeah, I guess doubling down. Saying he's sorry, but it's not. Okay, and then yeah, and then yeah, you got and all this other stuff. All this other stuff. Obviously the Raw, what happened on Raw. All in all, like yeah, there's some controversy, but overall, because I have to end this, man, I'm gonna end this controversy with him because I'm my throat. I mean, I'm thirsty. So, in all, influential figure in WWE wrestling. I mean, he's helped put wrestling on the map, definitely. Controversial figure. The character, the guy behind it is controversial, but he definitely has an impact. Not just a wrestling, but mainstream. He was seen as more than just a wrestler at the time. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Hogan. Like, share, subscribe, comment below, guys. But my throat is kind of dry.
Give me what I want. Give me what I want. You know what I want. Give me what I want, or I'm going to continue to hurt people you love. Give me what I want. Give me what I want. You know what I want. You just don't want to give it to me. Give it to me. Give me what I want.
We're going to give you what you want.
That's not what I want.